So the big O. Um, so I think a lot of people just like to, a lot of reviewers at least like to describe this as anime Batman or Batman with with big robots or whatever, super robots or whatever you want to call it. I think according to the wiki, even Cartoon Network under the Toonami flag advertised the series as one part Bond, one part Bruce Wayne, and one part city smashing robot. Uh, but and those influences certainly are there, but there's a little bit more to the going on with the plot, I would say, which
Yeah,
is
I'd
original.
say the similarities are like Batman are very like superficial.
Mm.
I mean, everyone likes to make those comparisons because one, you don't actually see many other examples where you have main character is essentially this big billionaire. You've got his butler, and they all wear black, and he's super stylish. You don't see that a lot in big media. That's sort of like a past era type thing. And also, it helps that it's made by Studio Sunrise, and Studio Sunrise just so happened to have done a little bit of the episodes for Batman the Animated Series, which was like just a few years before this. So a lot of people are pretty quick to make those comparisons.
So another thing which this gets described as is as noir, or which I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to mean. I used to think, I guess, detective films from the 60s and 70s and whatnot from America or whatever. That's the.
Well, a lot earlier than that. Noir, we're talking like the 30s. Like
Hmm.
we're talking the just after the silent era when everything was black and white. Like the whole idea of noir is that oftentimes you're using black and white in order to enhance the mood. There have been a couple retro films like that, and
Yeah, and also like noir protagonists are definitely more like anti-hero territory.
mm, yeah, and you definitely see some of the influence in terms of the setting here. We're introduced to this main character, Roger Smith, wealthy billionaire. He has a rather weird job that no one else has ever heard of. He's a negotiator, and for some reason, which you'd think he's like a private eye, but sort of, but mostly people pay him to negotiate various deals, ransom money, or sometimes to just be a private eye and other things like that.
Yeah, like he's not supposed to be a hero or something like that. He just happens to be helping the police and whatnot, but by accident.
Of course, he's just doing his job. Like classic noir guy. He left the police force because he got so disgusted with it. But now he has conveniently this giant robot, and he lives in this place called Paradigm City, which is so noir the sun never comes out. Literally.
It was a depressing day, and a new dame just walked into my apartment.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess the architecture would be described as Art Deco or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
Art Deco New York. It's clearly supposed to be New York.
yeah, which I guess might be another reason why it's compared to the Batman. I don't know. Is it Art Deco in the Batman or is it more Gothic? I don't really know much about architecture. Um, so, um, so I guess the other thing about the setting, which I didn't really expect, or at least hadn't heard of, was that everyone has lost their memories about what has happened. Nobody can remember what happened before 40 years ago. Before,
Yes.
yeah. But they can still remember how to um, do their job. You know, like how to use electricity, science, stuff like that. But they don't remember the history and their
Yeah, there.
personal history as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this great opening monologue that's given throughout the early episodes, where it basically goes, uh, "People can live without their memories, even if like somewhat not willingly, even if they are cut off from the past." And you really do get the sense that Roger at the start of the show basically doesn't care about the fact that the memories are missing, and is willing to live with that, but that won't obviously change with time.
Right. Most of the
Yeah, but
problems.
especially as like the plot starts going moving forward and Big O and all that stuff.
Mm.
Yes, most of the problems involve people who do care about those memories, trying to seek them for their own benefit, because like those memories are not just like just personal stuff, but stuff like how to build a giant robot and stuff like that too, which apparently happened. People used to have the knowledge of before 40 years. Though
Yeah,
I
yeah. A thing I didn't get about that is like, why if you had the ability to build robots, like, why wouldn't you make blueprints of the shit and like write it down?
I think the idea is that, like, even if you have blueprints, there's only so much you can copy. There's some certain amount of inherent knowledge needed. It's known today that we can't remake the Saturn V rockets in America. Like, that's lost technology. You think they didn't write a whole bunch of that stuff down? You can't do it.
Right. So our detective, no, he's not a detective. He's a negotiator. Um,
Negotiate. Which is the first clue that there might be something a little off with this world.
so he has a butler. So I'm not sure if it's a British butler. I haven't listened to the English dub. Have any of you?
Oh,
Yes.
you should have been watching the dub. But this is one of the old time designed to be watched dubbed shows.
Yeah. So another thing.
And
Yeah, go on.
it's one of those shows where obviously the situation is all in New York. It's obviously makes sense from a dub perspective, but it's also got a really good host of strong performances. You've got Steve Bloom as the main character, Roger Smith. I couldn't name you every other actor off the top of my head, but every single one of them is doing a very, very good job.
So another thing which I missed was the opening, because I watched a blue quote unquote Blu-ray, um,
Yes.
and so in the new in the Blu-rays they have replaced the opening because due to possible copyright issues.
Yeah, it might have been that they put that new opening in for like the Japanese rebroadcast in like 2006 or something. But yeah, traditionally Big O had this opening which was basically a a riff of Flash Gordon. And I mean, I sort of equally like both openings well enough. The main I slightly prefer the Flash Gordon one, and the main issue I have is there's this one episode, I think it's like episode 6 or 7 or something, where the opening's supposed to play. And that whole scene very much works when you have the energy of this Flash Gordon riff going. And when you have the kind of very m- much more low key opening going on, it really doesn't work quite the same way.
So, another thing I guess to say, which is important, is that this series actually got more popular in the United States than in Japan. And though it was originally supposed to be 26 episodes, because it wasn't popular in Japan, it only got 13. But because it was popular in the United States, I think around 3 or 4 years later, so I believe that the original series came out in 1999 or something.
Yes, and the season 2 started in 2002, and it was specifically at the request of Cartoon Network and with a certain deal of their funding that they decided to make a sequel to this anime, which is very unusual. But Cartoon Network did have a couple of requests, and the main request was the Big O is ultimately speaking a serial, at least throughout most of the first season. You're introduced to these characters, and you mostly follow Roger Smith as he helps out,
Negotiates.
negotiates, yes, as he helps out various characters who are going through special bits of their lives. It might be an old dying grandmother who's looking for her long lost son, who everyone writes off as dead. It
It could be like a struggling musician who has to look after this blind girl.
Exactly, all sorts of things like that. Uh, very much very little snippets, often which vary in quality, but some of them are really excellent. It feels very similar to Cowboy Bebop in that capacity, in that it's showing you these snippets of real life, and you also get a very like Cowboy Bebop. It's very interested in these people, and it can very easily build up in just a short space of time all these characters and what they're about. Uh,
Unfortunately, it seems that season two didn't do so well, but I think it was also because of some stupid regulations introduced in the Bush era, which pushed the time slot for Big O into like midnight or something ridiculous like that.
I don't think there would have been any regulations of that nature. U.S. doesn't really have
Really?
regulations like that for the most part. No.
I see. So anyway, I heard that it didn't do that well, unfortunately, and that I mean, we'll talk about the ending later, but some people didn't like it. And I guess another difference would be that I, I I believe that the animation looks a little bit different.
Yes, the main difference you can find season 1 to season 2 is the fact that season 1 it's one of the last traditionally animated anime, and this really fits the style of the show because everything's murky, everything's dark, everything's
Everything is
foggy.
gritty.
Yeah, everyone looks slightly flat and darkened, and that I mean, you're going for noir aesthetic here. You're going for that feel in the story, and that really fits In season 2, by that time, every major studio had made the transition to digital in Japan. So they had no choice but animate this digitally. And the art style doesn't change. But even so, you can actually notice a change in the animation because it's gone to digital. And it's that era where they were trying to figure out how to color in effective manner using digital animation. And they were still experimenting, and so a lot of the like color and dullness of the
First season
uh,
isn't there.
yeah, it just isn't there in the same
Yeah,
way.
the second season does come off a little more like brighter than say the first.
It looks at, and occasionally it will play back stock footage from season 1, and you can always tell immediately that there is this discrepancy.
Another,
E-
yeah, go on.
Yeah, even though like in terms of like drawn animation, it's entirely identical, but like the coloring's all been changed.
Yeah, and obviously, like it had been like a few years in between some, and I think that the writers had worked on other stuff as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe they brought on Chiaki Konaka only for season 2.
Konaka only worked on season two, not
I
season one.
bel I believe so. I'd have to double check.
I'm pretty sure that he. I don't know. I think he did work on season one because I read him talking about um like how they had the how he came up with the character for Dorothy essentially. And
Oh, okay. So he was okay. Yeah, it says okay. So he did scripts of episodes 1 through 4, 7, and various other people did some of the first season episodes as well, but he did the entire string of second season episodes with their scripts.
yeah, so on NEDB, like unusually, like even before the plot synopsis, like there's an asterisk and then it says script written by Konaka Chiaki, which like usually, I don't know, I don't feel like people pay that much attention to the script writers, like but I guess it's an exception here because
Ch- Ch-
yeah.
Yeah, Chiaki Konaka has this really big reputation. He did some, and it's mostly for being Evangelion style mindfucks. He was involved with like Digimon Tamers and did some surprisingly weird stuff for a kids show. Has
Yeah,
been
Digimon Tamers. Like, I actually watched the show. Like, Digimon Tamers is like doing like a deconstruction of your own franchise. Like, it starts out relatively normal, and then it just does like a complete fucking 180.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know.
Like that show, like Digimon Tamers, was esoteric as fuck and scary as fuck. Like, there's a couple of scenes where, as a kid, I was like, it scared the fuck out of me.
like I say, let's just say that it's far better than Pokemon, I guess.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
but
So
we but
yeah.
we've been talking relatively little about the episodes and the characters.
Okay, then let's talk about the character which Chiaki made, Dorothy, the
Oh yes.
sidekick. Um,
Yeah, we're introduced to her in the first 2 episodes, and I have to say and this probably didn't help the show. The first 2 episodes are some of the weakest. The plot is a little tangled. I think some people have pointed out that there's maybe a little bit of a plot hole here or there, and it basically involves Dorothy being Roger Smith gets called in to what's supposed to be a regular negotiation, only to get and then a ransom payment, money for this guy's daughter. And it's only when this guy has his daughter returned that he tells her, "No, you fool, that's not my daughter. That's just an android that looks like her." And he goes, "What? Okay." Uh, and sort of the plot gets further in, and you realize, well, okay, this android was based off of the daughter, but he also has a sister, another Dorothy to this Dorothy android who is a giant robot, and I think the real daughter is either never existed or is long dead. It's been a little while, but
Bit of both.
bit of both. And so ultimately, this
Roger
Dorothy's
Smith basically stops her.
yeah, Dorothy's creator dies. Watch, yeah, Dorothy is left with nowhere else home, and it's actually Dorothy who imposes herself upon Roger and says, "I have nowhere else to go, and I have no way of paying my services, so I will pay for it by serving you, Roger Smith." And she's basically this deadpan character. She's sort of emotionless, like Data from Star Trek, but she also has sort of this bite to her. She, for lack of a better term, she's the type uh who, if you piss her off, is going to like give you a sort of like scathing little insult under her breath or something like that. She's fond of calling Roger Smith a louse, and
And she
the
also
whole
likes to wake him up by playing the piano really badly.
no, she plays the piano excellently. But the thing is, he just absolutely despises her forceful playing method, and the fact that he's getting woken up after whenever he sleeps in the afternoon. He considers waking it, being able to sleep into alone after, a privilege.
And machinery outside manning the stage. And it seems to
Uh,
hint at the idea.
the let's see, third episode deals.
I remember one of them was like the Sea People or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the later episodes of
Like
season
they just
one.
come out of nowhere, steal everyone's memories, refuse to elaborate further, and leave.
Yeah, and there's this sort of sea leviathan. Everyone likes to point out naturally that there's this giant robot. That every episode naturally has to conclude with a giant robot fight because
It's
hey,
anime.
Roger Smith is a giant robot. He has to use it. In some ways, the show's kind of reminiscent of like the Brave series or stuff like that. And I really do like a lot of the action scenes with the mecha. They really come across. You can really feel the weight, and they
Oh
come
fuck
across
yeah!
like they
Like
come.
like how the mech moves and how like the screen starts to shake a little bit as the mech step forward, or like the gravity and shit like that as they punch each other. Like the robot fights feel pretty like in depth.
Yeah, and they really feel like gigantic boxing matches in reality.
So apparently, the designs were made as a tribute to old Super Robot shows.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see that.
yeah, they do kind of look bulky, I guess. That's
Yeah,
it.
they look very Western, frankly. They look much more Western cartoon than what you'd expect of an anime.
Mm. Okay, so I guess another character we're discussing would be Dan Dustin, or however you say his name.
Yeah, there's Dustin. He's the like it's funny in the first episode. Well, in the opening, the original opening, you get introduced to these characters. It's this weird surrealist opening where it just goes big O, big O, oh, big O, and
Then
it
it goes
has
like negotiator, android, butler, police officer, big
yeah,
go.
yeah, and really that sort of sums up all the characters right there. Because, like, to be frank, most of the primary characters in the Big O are not super complex or anything like that. Norman, his butler, is entirely one note, but that's fine, and he's just a consistent part of every episode. Dan Dustin is similarly doesn't have too much going on. He's the good old honorable cop who tries to do the best, even though he's controlled and manipulated by powers above him. In the case of Big O, it's the Paradigm Corporation, which really controls everything in the entire city.
Yeah, they
Uh,
control the power, they control the plumbing, they control the finances, they control the phones. Like it's like they have a fucking massive monopoly over the city.
oh yeah, they effectively run the company, run the city as their personalist corporate dictatorship, and the they to the point where they even have these domes, and for whatever reason, Paradigm City is a city where the sun never shows, and in order to get around this, there are these various expensive domes that the rich people live in, which provide sunlight, like artificial sunlight. And it's a huge class distinction and difference between these people, where there are the people inside the domes who are able to experience basic sunlight, the basics of what we consider to be normal, and those outside the domes do not. And it's often a common running thing in the show of like the military police. For some reason, they're always called the military police. Will often get orders to the effect of, well, the domes are the most important thing to protect, and Dan Dustin, who's the police commissioner, will basically ride roughshod over them and say, "No way in hell, our responsibility is to all the citizens in Paradigm, not just those, not just those rich people in the domes." And there's a couple good episodes where you can really understand the resentment that's going on there.
Yeah, I believe that Roger Smith himself lives outside the domes.
Yes, despite being quite wealthy himself.
So
Yeah,
and
actually, speaking of that, like, how the fuck does he actually make his money? Like, that's the thing I've always wondered.
Well, that's where we get into all the season two revelations.
Yeah, just a heads up, I didn't manage to rewatch all of season two because I got sick. So,
Oh, okay. Do you remember like how it goes down and everything?
vaguely, like I like the tomato shit, and then like Angel, and then there's like a fucking studio. Like, it's been a while.
Okay, well, this was your first time watching it, good student. So I want to hear you try and explain
oh god,
what happened in season two. Spoilers, of course.
oh god.
Listen, all I know is that, like, outside the farm, there's some really nice tomatoes. Really good tomatoes, Hercules.
Okay.
Homegrown.
So the ending, I guess, is that like nothing is real. They are in a um, it's the Matrix or whatever, or something like that. Um, so there are no memories. All the memories are fake. Um, and yeah, there's giant stage lights in the sky. Um,
Mm,
and the world gets reset. Um,
hmm
and so I
I mean, one thing I remember right is that fucking like Big O's trying to merge with Roger, or Roger's like, "Oh yeah, you're with me the entire time," or something like that. Like I vaguely remember the ending.
and
I mean,
yeah.
that's not a huge part of the ending. Continue, good student.
So I guess I've watched some videos to get like what is the what is the meaning of this series like
Ah,
or
Giant
whatever like
robots
I
go
mean,
brr.
I mean, you should, but that's also why I want to hear your reactions
uh,
about all that.
anyway.
Listen, I'll tell what the show's about. It's giant robots go burr.
Yeah, essentially, but I like I mean it's sort of a cop out. I thought like we don't really need to explain like come up with what happened before because nothing actually happened 40 years earlier.
Well,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
yeah, that's the interesting part. You can see the first 13 episodes, they definitely have a different feel to them. And you can tell this
Yeah,
was not
like
the ending or the origin that that they were originally planning. That said, they
yeah,
never
because like
were.
season one, they're going on a bit more like conspiratorial shit. Like, okay, why did the memories get taken away? I mean, we know these sea people came out of nowhere and don't refuse to elaborate, but you know, where'd these sea people come from? Yeah, like it was going more like conspiracy theories, and not everything is what it seems.
Hmm
Yeah, I mean, a good example would be the way that the head of Paradigm is portrayed in the two different seasons. Like in season one, what's his name? Alex Rosenwater, or whatever,
Alex Rosewater, yeah.
Rosewater. Like in season one, I don't think we see him that much.
No,
Um,
he's in. I mean, that's entirely in keeping. Yeah, he's basically hinted at as being, I guess you could say, the big bad and the one manipulating everything. And he's very hands off in the first season, but he'll occasionally call in Roger to do some sort of dirty
Negotiate.
job for him, essentially. Sometimes dealing with this terrorist named Schwarzwald, former reporter. Um, but
Paradigm lapdog.
yes, everyone's a paradigm lapdog.
I
Uh,
fucking loved him when he showed up. He's like this guy that's bandaged up and he's like mentally he's fucked. He's like, you will find the truth, Roger Smith.
oh yeah, and he's like, report this to your masters, and he's so like uh comical's not the right word. He's
Energetic.
no
a bit like
like
the
when
Joker.
if we're talking Heath Ledger Joker, yes, because he's trying to make a point, like he is. Uh, uh, but he has this sense of dramatic timing, you almost might say, as he like blows up a building as and Roger Smith goes barely escapes from it, and then you see this bandaged man, and he tells him what he should tell his masters, and he gives some cryptic stuff, and then he runs off into the darkness laughing and you only see him in a few episodes, but he is undoubtedly one of the best characters, and he is absolutely obsessed with discovering the truth as he sees it. And this is actually one of the best early episodes. And it's very noirish feeling,
Is it when they
where
go down
you
to the fucking sewers, like the underground?
yes, yeah, and you
That
think,
episode's really fucking good.
and you think, oh, it's just going to be like some regular fucking sewers, but no,
Nope.
like, you go further down, and all of a sudden everything's high tech. Everything's like really clean and pristine, and there's this giant rays of red light, and something is terribly wrong here. Like, how are these things functioning? What, who built all this stuff? And Roger goes further and further down into it, and he comes across this gigantic ruined area with all these half finished buildings and this giant robot entombed inside it. And it says like expo, like it was an old city expo, but even then it seems rather gigantic for a city expo, and there's even more unused like train areas.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually, that's
there are some. I believe there was also some miniature of the city, and also the lower that you go, the newer the construction, the construction gets. Um, and
which is seems totally contradictory and wild.
but I don't know. I guess the final revelation was that which finally make sense of it. Yeah, but it's kind of like, oh, this is the Matrix, so whatever. And
But the thing is, like, that actually, like, it didn't have to be that origin, but that origin actually makes sense because it's like, okay, all this stuff below there is like prototypes for what they're ultimately building above ground. And also provides a little a hint at the artificial nature of their whole world.
yeah, I certainly didn't guess that everything was fake at that point. Um,
No, well, like I said, because they this was one of those shows, and it's a rather famous interview. The writers have gone on record saying that they had no intention of ever completely solving the mystery behind Paradigm City. That they just thought it was a really, really nice setting, and it is a really, really nice setting.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
cool.
and they intended to use that as a method to really just tell interesting one-off stories, and the show is very good at doing that. Some of the best episodes are in season one, these one-offs, and season two is good. I'm not going to claim it's not, but the best episodes are in season one in these one-off episodes. Um and But they got the request from Cartoon Network when they were going to make a season two that they wanted to see a actual ending, like an actual explanation for the origin of things. And so they said, okay, we got to do that, so we're going to do that. And the result of it is season two, which, and to be fair, the end episode of season one goes really deep into the whole origin stuff. You get introduced to Gordon Rosewater, the father of Alex, who apparently like built the domes, built almost everything about Paradigm City, and he wrote this novel that was like all about the end of the world, these all the big robots, including Big O, legions upon legions of them laying waste the city, uh, string upon string of people that just seem to be like clones or created in a vat or something. And and it's marketed like the book describes itself as a description of the future, almost like this revelation type thing. Uh, and Roger asks Gordon Rosewater about this, and he says, like, everything about that book is a lie. You go like, what? And this Gordon Rosewater likes to talk cryptically about his tomatoes and about the right times for harvest and something like that. And that if you don't harvest at the right time, then sadly your beloved tomatoes will just rot. What a waste of such good tomatoes.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're really nice tomatoes.
yeah, I think it kind of became unintentionally comedic a little bit in the first episode of season 2,
Oh my
where
god, I'm a tomato.
uh,
Am I a tomato too?
okay, yeah, and then I can't remember the last one, but it was Rosenwater accusing him of being a rotten tomato or whatever.
Oh
Um,
yeah, because the whole idea is, and this is what's revealed in season 2, and it's like slowly built up, and it's one of those things where like almost halfway through season 2, you basically have to come to this conclusion. I mean, not everyone will make it, but every single person, or most of them, including Roger, is a tomato. They were grown, they were made by Gordon Rosewater and implanted with whatever memories they had. They don't. They'll, a lot of them, through some unknown capacity, are artificial humans. And
yeah, mm, yeah, go on.
yeah, uh,
Sorry.
I mean, even in the setting itself, like you have like sentient androids that are among the population, and no one
yes,
seems to raise much of an eyebrow to it as well. So
no, they're very much just part of the civilization. I mean, it is referenced that they can't really be made anymore. Well, actually, I don't know. Dorothy is so advanced she can't really be made anymore, but I don't know about other characters as much. But yeah, and it's this really wild stuff, and yeah, I mean, I'm kind of lost my train of thought. Do you have any way to take this Bio Gundam?
um, I'm kind of fucking tired, and I'm about to crash in a bit. But
So yeah,
I guess one of the things we can talk about, right, is like the ending like episode of season 1. Like it's definitely hinting that there's bigger shit going on.
Oh yes.
And then those like big 3 robots come out of the fucking sea. They don't elaborate why they're there, but they're there anyway, right? And Roger goes to fight them. Um,
Yeah. Which,
I
by the
liked the
way, continue.
yeah, I kind of like the mindfuck episode, right, where they like make him question reality.
Hmm.
yeah, I'm not sure whether like what he sees is like the real world or not, or whether that's probably not, but still.
Well, what he's seeing there, and I don't confess to know exactly how it happened, but what he's seeing is a previous reset of their world and a previous era. Like their world resets every so often, and it's not clear whether it's every 40 years or whether it's even shorter than that. And what Roger got transported to is effectively a past life of his, one in which he was just some bum on the street, and there was this and there was just this story, and all the stuff with Big O was literally just a story in a comic book. And yeah, this is a very existential plot.
Yeah,
The
because
the
it's like, oh, Roger Smith, what are you without your billions of dollars and your giant robot?
And it's like literally nothing. I don't have a past. I don't have relatives. I I don't even know how I met the Big O. And this is like only revealed in season 2. Like in season 1, you got things like Roger Smith he left the police force at some point, and he somehow came into contact with Big O. And it's never really made clear why or the exact specifics of this, and you just chalk it up as, hey, it's noir. That stuff is going to be like vagaries. Maybe one episode will get more in depth, maybe not. In season two, it actually becomes a plot point that Roger has no idea how he met Big O. He doesn't even really remember the incident that caused him to leave the police force. Dustin
Yeah,
does.
yeah, and you also get the impression that like the big O robot, he didn't find it. The robot found him.
Yeah, yeah.
Did Dan Dustin remember why? Um,
No, no. He remembers that they're good friends, but he doesn't entirely remember exactly what it was about either.
and this was not 40 years ago, obviously. So,
No. So you get like this creeping how much of this world is artificial. How h- like how do these and the truth of it is seemingly almost everything about it is. And we see like images of like Roger Smith getting like stamped out as like almost this robot. And the ending involves we get introduced to this Gordon Rosewater, and at the very end, he talks a little bit. There's actually this great scene at the end of in the final episode where everything's really starting to go crazy, and like Gordon Rosewater walks into this room with Angel, who's sort of like the femme
Yes, I
fatale of the
remember the
show,
scene.
and he like holds up this book and it says like, it's up to you to finish things and fix things now, negotiator Roger Smith. And he just sort of like turns inverted colors and disappears into nothingness, and it's like, what? And there's this great scene at the start of the final episode where you start with this. It's the same character who always is at this bar and providing info for Roger Smith. Roger Smith will that this guy, like, very classy, middle-aged looking guy reading a newspaper with some saloon uh, music playing in the background, classic noir. And this guy and uh, and this guy starts monologuing at the start of the last episode. You know, Roger Smith, there are no. It's nonsense. There was nothing 40 years ago. It's nonsense to ask if memories exist, because there was nothing right then. And then it zooms in on him, and it's like revealed that he was like an android the whole time, and half his face is metal. Like his express purpose in creation was to pass this info to Roger. And he's like, by the way, don't you think it's time that uh, uh, you rescue the maiden, Dorothy? Rescue the maiden in distress? And then like the building crashes in on him, and he's completely unbothered by it. It's like,
He's like, job done.
yep.
so I guess as you said, so I guess what I wanted to know after watching this series, then like was not really specifics about the plot, but like whether the show was trying to say anything, because like there's a bunch of I mean there's this plot which we talked about which comes to an end, but like there's also the self-contained stories which
Well,
form.
yes. Like the whole purpose of the story is, and it's very much open to interpretation. Um, but it seems to be something like this. Angel is a avatar of the person who's sort of like almost creating this world or like running this simulation or something like that. And she has her own issues, and she's sort of been perhaps running away from her past, something like that, something to do with her memories. And she seems to be attending to this instead. And the final bit involves, as this giant robot, Big Venus, which is like basically this weird, slightly different looking version of Big O, but with like inverted colors. And when I say inverted colors, I don't mean like, oh, they colored it slightly differently. I mean they put it through an invert filter, and that's exactly what it looks like. uh,
Yeah, you also have like Big Duo and Big W or something like
Big
that as well.
Foul. Yeah, yeah. Well, they get destroyed too. And Big Venus is like walking towards the Big O. Everything else has been like reduced to nothingness, like just suddenly gone. Not even vaporized per se, just goes away. And Roger, as his ultimate goal, as an ultimate task as a negotiator, makes this impassioned plea to Angel that memories are important to us, but also that he doesn't believe that he lost any memories, that he erased them of his own free will, and sort of seems to be getting at the idea that even if he did erase his memories of free will, this like there's no reason to run from them any further, or keep doing this cycle over and over.
Yeah, like the show almost has like this very kind of Nietzschean like anti-nihilism message to it
Yeah,
in a way.
perhaps. And we see this like picture of like briefly the real Angel, like looking at it through like this big computer screen, and she's like crying, and there's like the book, and it says Angel Rosewater there, and you see like a real life Dorothy and Roger Smith there, and Dorothy puts his hand on him, and he's like, Roger, the negotiator. It's like, what? It's like this show is more The Matrix than The Matrix. Um, but ultimately, the reset happens again. We cover. Uh, we have Roger Smith going about in the exact same intro as he had in season one, but the difference is you see Dorothy and Angel walking side by side, just sort of normally in this world, not tied to anything. And the implication there, and the implication that's usually pulled, is that thanks to Roger's negotiations, perhaps this will be the last reset, and that they will be allowed to live on uh, pretty much indefinitely in this world of theirs without it being reset and coming to another grand finale.
So another interpretation which I heard was that is this. So the whole show is just showing characters dealing with the fact that they can never know where they came from, and as Roger concludes, realizing that it doesn't matter, because you can choose to be whoever you are or whatever you are, and the world around you is the world around you, and you can take it as you will, or something like that. I don't know. I don't know.
You could,
You
yeah,
could.
you could take some message like that. I'd say this is one of those shows where the freakiness of it definitely overwhelms any kind of message. Uh, but like, it's a very strong show. We also haven't talked very much about Alex Rosewater. Uh, I really, really liked him as an antagonist. Like the first season, he's just set up as this guy in a coat. This guy who's like ordering everything. He runs Angel to do various dirty tasks for the Paradigm Corporation, usually getting in Roger's way. Uh, but then by season two, he starts to become more involved. He apparently uses these group of foreigners to bring in their own giant robots, the Megaduces. And apparently, enclosed inside those Megaduces is himself the parts for another Megadeuce, which is like big foul. And Alex Rosewater is like attempting to create this, and you tend to think of him as, oh, he's just at the start. He's like, oh, he seems very calm and in command, and someone who has this vision for himself controlling the city, a little bit of a god complex, but still a very refined man. Uh, and then by the time he actually gets the giant robot Big Foul running, he starts revealing this really childish side to him, where he's just absolutely talking like a baby, and enjoying a little bit too much operating this thing, and we start to see hints of that childish side more and more. At the same time, we get introduced to his relationship with his father, Gordon Rosewater, and it's as the one thing that really makes you feel for Alex. It's horribly tragic. Gordon Rosewater, he likes to talk in riddles, and this can easily be interpreted as him being senile, but he's not. He is still quite intelligent. He's still all there, and he enjoys working his tomato farm, which seems to have, yeah, those tomatoes might be something a little bit more than just tomatoes. Um, but he whenever Alex goes to meet him, uh, Gordon just plays as if he's totally senile, like even more so than usual. And Alex is just absolutely devastated by this type of stuff. He wants the approval of his father. He wants to really follow in his footsteps. Uh, but this Gordon Rosewater is just absolutely not paying any attention to him, and even like going, "Oh, that's right, you're my son." And Alex is just devastated by this, and there's this great scene where after he says that, Alex just hugs onto his back and says, very quietly but very warmly, "I love you, Dad." And it's really kind of striking because, like, he's most of the time he's like the manipulative character who has many lives in his hands, but you really see this great vulnerability inside Alex as well, and I thought that was a very nice touch.
Didn't the old Rosenwater, what was he called again?
Gordon.
Gordon Gordon Rosenwater also say that in that scene that yes, you're all my children or something like that.
Y-
He- he-
yeah,
because they are essentially they are all
grown.
clones or whatever of him
Yeah,
and the other. Yeah.
yeah, they're all grown via those tomatoes or however, and it's actually revealed that actually Alex is one of those as well. So he's not technically Gordon's biological son. He's just another tomato. Um, though even so, putting that aside, I really think it was kind of a irresponsible move, I'd say, of Gordon Rosewater to just do absolutely nothing to take care of his son or communicate with him. I think he really failed in his duties. Uh,
Yeah, I guess another faction there is the Union.
yeah, France. You mean France? Literally, the three giant robots when they're like introduced, they're named like Robespierre, and I'm blanking on the other two, but it's like the three main uh figures of 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 the French Revolution and the early French Republic. Uh, of course, this is all background material. It's not mentioned in the show, but I just find that funny.
Yeah, I've heard a rumor. I, at least well, I had another reviewer say, but I, I don't I didn't actually see it in the series that the leader of the Union Vera Ronstadt
Hmm.
might have actually been the real daughter of Gordon. Um,
Yeah, well, they say that he pretty much says that explicitly in like the second to last episode, Gordon.
and that basically so basically this is sort of like a family spat between the clone who thinks that he's Gordon's son and the actual daughter who who knows that the union is not real, doesn't exist, and all that, but
Yeah, yeah,
simply wants to take Alex's position as the head of
Y-
Paradigm, essentially.
yeah. It's interesting because like she is introduced here, but like she's seems to be Gordon Rosewater's actual biological daughter, but uh, who also raised Angel as her mother from like Ultimate Mindfuck. Uh, and she both Angel, who's like an avatar and doesn't realize what she is, and and this leader of the Union, quote unquote, think there is a real France somewhere. But the truth is, there is no France. All that exists is paradigm. It's like it's absolutely wacko wild.
Yeah, but basically, they explain. I'm not sure that Vera thinks that there's a France, but
No,
it's
she does. She explicitly does, and she is explicitly shocked when Gordon Rosewater like makes this point. She knows that she that like she raised Angel in this artificial set some in Paradigm, but she thinks they're all like secret agents of France, and she thinks, oh, they're still I'm still loyal to my country all the way off there. uh and it's like, no, there is no country off there, and she is like completely floored by this as well.
Another Dan Dustin also has another mindfuck moment, where like he he sees himself and uh, this other quote unquote this I think she was a union agent or whatever.
Yes,
Um, a-
yes, this blonde hair girl woman, very light, sort of a dark blonde hair, trench coat, mysterious looking with a red, uh, with this sort of red balloon. And the sort of weird thing, and this is from season one, is Dan Dustin has like memories of like seeing this whole scene play out in a movie, and like watching it as a kid. But he but but like the actress for that movie is like long dead, yet he sees this woman who's like the spitting image of her, and he feels like this instinctual attraction to her, and it feels like love at first sight or something like that, and he absolutely rushes towards her, tries to make something with her, even as, but she's also causing terrorism, she's also blowing things up, and he has to deal with her as a the head of the police force, and ultimately he shoots her on the dock, perfectly mirroring the exact same scene from from the movie, and she like gives out the same line or very similar lines, and that she always felt that it had to end this way, and it's very freaky, but in the context of season two, you can actually think of it as, oh, this movie is like almost like a planned prototype for what will probably happen later, or this is just what already happened in a prior time loop, and they recreated it as a movie because, hey, why not? Uh,
yeah. And then there's another moment when because I think he also has memories of having known that woman as a child or something somehow.
yes, yes.
And later on, he sees a kid and uh, and a little girl, a boy and a little girl, and the boy and they look exactly like the boy looks exactly like he used to as a
Hmm.
kid.
Hmm.
Because I believe that he basically he went to watch the movie, or at least he had the memory of watching the movie, um, where that actress dies, at a um, theater, um, when he was a kid, like so like it wouldn't it would even if that uh, yeah, basically that actress had long died, but now like he's basically seen um himself as a kid. uh, but it's a different character. It's hard to explain, but
Hmm.
yeah, I probably remember.
Yeah, it's very wacky.
Um,
Like,
what do you make of Alan Gabriel's character? What was he about, if anything?
there's really not much to that character. He is played absolutely wonderfully in the dub by Crispin Freeman. Like, Crispin Freeman is having the time of his life with this character, and he's just like this creepy, sadistic character. He like works for Alex Rosewater. He works for the Union. Really, he just works for whoever's the highest bidder and promises to give him more. And by the end, that involves flat out being gifted Big Duo. uh, and there's nothing much to him, but at the same time, he is like interesting as this creepy motherfucker. Uh, and he decides to essentially take over the and then he dies when he's fighting alongside Big Duo. This great scene, and to be honest, we should tie back into Schwarzwald first. Schwarzwald, introduced in one of the early episodes, former reporter named Michael Zabak. And this Michael Zabak was, of course, disgusted by Paradigm, disgusted how you can't get to the truth. And there are these wonderful, long monologues of his every so often, which can be really entrancing, and they're very well done by the voice actor in the dub. Um, and Schwartzwald, he takes on this moniker of Schwarzwald, and all of a sudden like has this strange appearance where he's like in a suit and tie, but he's got like a whole bunch of bandages wrapped around his head into like a cone shape on his head, um as if he were a burn victim, but it's not clear whether he is or not. And perhaps he is after they tried to kill him or something. Again, it's not clear. Um,
I thought it was after he tried to activate the mech, which becomes the big foul, or the one which is underground. I think.
yeah, that one doesn't have to do with Big Foul. It's another
Okay.
prototype
Okay.
for Big.
I didn't he say that? No, I think he just said that looking for the truth made him that way. I guess. So they don't really
Yes.
explain it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the yeah, he's always somehow integrated into this. And like late he uncovers this other big yeah, there's a number of different episodes. There's an episode early on where he's introduced, and that's the very good one where they go underneath the city, find that everything's newer, come across this expo stuff, etc. uh the other episode in season 1, it's kind of a weak episode. He just kind of like shows up, has a giant robot that's like clearly a brother to Big O. They fight. It's kind of one of the simpler and weaker episodes, but it's a good battle. And ultimately, he's defeated. There's a revelation. Big Duo kind of keeps moving even after Schwarzwald exits the controls, and Schwarzwald talks a little bit about who is it that controls these robots. Is it us, or is it the Megaduces themselves, Roger Smith? Uh, and we see him like by episode 18 or so, well into season 2, where we get this opening monologue and we see him actually dying, destroyed by this like sandworm thing, but he sets up all these things piecemeal that are going to happen after his own death, and that happens later on in a couple of episodes. And then by the time of like this is like episode 24, so like third episode to the last, Big Duo's been like restored by Alex Rosewater, gifted to Alan Gabriel, um hooked up in this sort of weird manner, and ultimately Roger Smith destroys the control unit of Big Duo, and right as it's about to like saw into the cockpit of Big O, and kill Roger rather brutally, the drills stop, and this and Big Duo just starts taking off of its own free will. And Alan Gabriel starts hearing this voice. It's the voice of Schwartzwald, and he like shows up in the mirror, and Alan Gabriel's freaking out as all these wires start going everywhere and just drowning him in them. And Schwartzwald taunts him, and he says like, You do not deserve to possess this big. It chooses one uh, who can control like the power of God created through man, and who deserves that right. That's not the same with you. And and all of a sudden it casts it puts on the screen ye guilty, and Alan Gabriel just gets sucked up by this thing. It's it's really an impressive scene.
Yeah, and by this point, of course, Schwarzwald is dead, but he's
Yeah,
somehow, yeah,
like a ghost of him is somehow living, and it's super weird, but like at the same time, like even Roger comments episodes earlier that even though he knows Schwartzwald is dead, like he feels like his influence is still living on, and like yeah, in a real, very real way, it is.
and but then at some point later, it kind of feels like Schwarzwald actually dies when the big duo hits the giant what do you call them, stage lights?
Stage lights,
Yeah.
yeah, he flies all the way to the top, and he realizes nothing but here up here with these giant stage lights, and he starts laughing. Goes, "This is a comedy. The truth about our memories, our everything. It was." And then for some reason I've never understood, he flies exactly into the stage lights rather than like around them, and Big Duo explodes.
Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that like he's haunting uh the 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 big duo, but he's not totally in control of it. Uh,
Possible.
Possible. So, by the way, I think I personally liked when it comes to mech designs, I like the big duo the
Mhm.
most. And I didn't. I actually liked the battle scene between the earlier one as well when the big duo was
Mhm.
introduced and all that, because
Yeah.
it seemed like the big O was in a little bit of trouble. Um,
Yeah, Big Duo like had the advantage of flight essentially, and that was a very hard uh bit to overcome for something like the Big O, which is like this really heavy mech that can in no way fly or anything like that.
so one character which I've seen criticized and blamed for basically ruining a bunch of episodes was Jason Beck, basically the first villain.
Oh,
As,
how what have you seen people say about?
in particular, the episode where like it becomes this parody of them uh, uh, like like making a Power Rangers combining
Oh, that
mech
was a great episode.
because it's not serious and it was like a joke essentially.
But it was half serious. Like, okay, we're gonna go through that whole episode now. Okay, so that whole episode, like, Roger Smith is just going through like a routine. Okay, well, technically, you open with like Beck, and he's trying to do this wild thing where he wants to like short. Beck is like introduced in the first episode, and he's sort of like this genius but slightly off kilter crook, who loves doing all sorts of odd things and odd jobs in order to get uh make money, He's introduced as the Ransom of Dorothy, and in this episode in season 2, he's introduced by like he's trying to have the his two henchmen serve as like circuits. There's a lightning storm going on out inside, and he's going to have his henchmen work as an electrical circuit to go into the whole electrical system and short circuit it so they can so they can escape. Ultimately, all three of them end up surfing as the electrical circuit, and they somehow all live and escape. And they make their way kissing up to these like to this Fujiwara group, this Japanese group who are like
They are
uh
like it came out of nowhere, like that, like like this Japanese theme thing, uh, in the middle of
yeah,
of a place based on New York.
and they're great in, well, keep in mind this is 80s to 90s, like Japan was like taking over blah 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 economically, and it was buying up things in America. And what's great is there's these I I believe they do something different in the Japanese, but in the dub, it's like that anyone talks to them and they go like, "Where are you taking me?" Dozo, dozo, kochira e.
They do that. They do that in the sub as well. They can't.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't know the language essentially. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why they're able to fool them. That's why Beck is able to fool them.
Yeah, and he has this rather ingenious scheme where he like takes where he imprisons kidnaps Roger Smith. He's got this perfect like robot dummy right in front of him that's mimicking him, and it like totally is playing upon Roger's own foolishness, where Roger just freaks out and starts lashing out at this robot that looks like him and is copying everything he says. And it all works perfectly. And he's just like, and after Roger's done this for about 5 minutes, he's like, "Great! Now I have like a perfect way to mimic your vocal recordings. So now I can just call Big O using this thing." It's like, and Roger's like, "Oh crap!" Eventually, he escapes thanks to Dorothy, and
Yeah, I mean,
eh,
hmm.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I like, for example, I found funny the way that Beck is able to disable Dorothy by like using a giant magnet.
Mhm. Both
Um, both
times.
times, yeah. And and like she's talking up there. And another funny scene, which I guess it also involves Dorothy from that episode, is when like she goes to rescue Roger, and uh, s- I don't know why she can't just drive Roger's car. Maybe she doesn't know how to drive. Instead she gets the she gets the bicycle, and because she's
Mhm.
an android, she can cycle really fast, and yeah, the police is racing after her
Yeah.
as well. Um, yeah. I mean, it was an all right light episode, and of course Beck's character in the end helps um, uh, Dorothy and Roger. I think in the sub anyway. Anyway, he says something like, "I'm night." He points his gun at Dorothy, who is about to leave to help Roger, and says, I'm neither on the side of black or of white, as in chess, I guess."
Mhm.
Um, but then helps them because he doesn't want to be used by Alert. Um, Come to think of it, there's one thing which doesn't make any sense. Why is it that because they are able to steal the that thing in Dorothy's head, which is supposed to be her core or something, right?
Memory, yeah,
Memory.
and like she's supposed to be like completely unable to operate without it, but then she just sort of like after a while does. Uh Again, I maybe sheer willpower, maybe just like the Matrix where you because it's not real, you can bend things a little. Like I really don't know.
Um, what was the whole thing about? Uh, um, I think it was the last episode. Was it the last episode of season one? Um, the whole Red Destiny thing, or was it?
Yes. Yeah, there's like this other android. He's got like the body of Dorothy. Is like hunting uh Roger down.
Yeah, I didn't really find it that much of an interesting episode. Really. Um,
I found
you
I
liked it?
found it kind of interesting. Yeah, I liked it. It's like you've got a lot of. It's one of the more mystery laden episodes where he's trying to figure out why these people are getting assassinated. Uh which, come to think of it, that's also a plot that they end up using in season two as well, but in a very different manner.
By the way, the book which first they say is written by Gordon Rosewater and then by Angel. It's called Metropolis,
Yeah,
which I think so.
yeah,
That's yeah.
Metropolis is a very famous site.
Oh, really?
Uh,
I thought it was maybe a reference to that comic book by Tezuka, but it's something else, I guess.
well, that comic book by Tezuka is entirely based off that very famous silent film. One of the first uh, silent films, and really credited sort of with inventing the idea
The idea of what?
of robots,
Oh, of robots. Okay.
of androids. Yeah.
I see. I see. I see. Oh, was it a female robot or a male one?
Uh, it's sort of female-ish. It looks like C-3PO because like that's what C-3PO was based off of. Uh, like
It's all right.
the machine and mensch.
So one thing which you said was that you found the relationship because there's sort of a love triangle thing going on between Roger, Angel, and Dorothy, and Roger kind of sort of chooses Dorothy, I guess,
Uh-huh.
and you said that you found the relationship between Dorothy and Roger to be kind of awkward. Why is that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've like it's not something that comes up. Uh, like they introduced love triangle between them very later on, but even from the start, there's something weirdly romantic going on with like Roger and Dorothy, where he's a little bit attached to her, but also like Dorothy will ask him questions like, she watches this other couple who got who apparently like fell in love like 40 years ago, just woke up side by side with one another and fell in love. And she basically asked Roger, if I were human and we were like that, would we have fallen in love? As and Roger's like, I, I can't answer that. And he's like, she makes some like biting comment like, is such a louse, Roger Smith, or I don't think she quite says that, but she's like clearly disappointed in him.
Yeah. And by the way, that couple who wakes up next to each other 40 years ago, like they didn't have any memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the question was like if they also met without having any memories, and she was human, then yeah, whether yeah, doesn't he actually answer that question at some point later on? Or-
Yeah, he says to her, "Yes, if you were human." In like episode 25, as she's like laying there without her memory chip installed and seemingly dead. But yeah, it's very strange. Yeah, I always found it very strange and like, okay, yeah, I can kind of get that there's a little bit of chemistry there, but I never got the impression that these androids have, well, to put it mildly, genitals or anything like that. And we even see a prototype of Dorothy, who's like going around doing acrobatics, not dressed in anything, and it's literally just like it's a doll. It's like doll outlines, and it's like, okay, how do I know that's not what Dorothy looks like underneath the clothes? It's like, it's, may I mean maybe this guy was like really into this stuff and decided to create all this stuff for this android, but I kind of doubt it. So I always found that rather.
Yeah, it's always awkward when you. I guess Roger was secretly an otaku or something. I don't know. Who doesn't like real women. Um, okay, earlier on you described yeah, but it's awkward when you think about them having sex. Yes.
Mhm.
So earlier on you described Angel as a femme
Femme
fatale.
fatale.
What does that
They
mean?
even you don't know it, like it even calls her. I think in the in like the original opening. But yeah, femme fatale is it's like Catwoman. It's the type of character that like a sort of like a naughty female character that does which sort of like criminal usually has various interactions with the hero, but does her own thing, works for the villains just as often, follows her own path in life, kind of loose and open. I mean, that's what a femme fatale is. Catwoman is classic femme fatale, and Angel is a classic femme fatale to the T. Like,
Mm, yeah. Okay. I think we have we have basically discussed all of the main characters. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've discussed everything major. Yeah.
So, how would you rate this anime?
Um, I was gonna say 7 out of 10 before, uh, but before starting this stream. But talking it over, like even though there are definitely some weak episodes, a few like just passable episodes in here, the show is so ambitious and really strange and weird in a lot of ways. Uh, that I was really impressed by it, and I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I think I'm still going to go with a 7 out of 10 because I don't know. I kind of I didn't like the explanation. I guess which was given in the end because it does make sense, but
A
it's not.
lot of people don't, and I used to be one of those people. But increasingly, as I look at it, and I look at it as sort of the, it makes sense to me. Like even like I look at it from like even like the earliest episodes, and it's like everything lines up, even though it wasn't intended. Everything lines up as if it was intended, and it does kind of work.
Hmm. Okay, okay then. Who do you think is the best girl?
Um, I guess Angel. Like I'm sure Bio Gundam would have said Dorothy, but I'm gonna go with Angel.
Okay. So we did we talk that much about Angel? Is there anything about Angel that you want to say that we haven't mentioned yet?
Um, like she's like a lot of these characters in that she is such a archetype to herself. Uh, I don't really find much to say about her. She is just sort of like classical femme fatale. Most of the stuff having to do with her has to do with her like revealed revelations of who she really is. Uh, but really, she's sort of like classic femme fatale without a past, or well, she does have a past. She's eventually revealed to be an agent of the French. Uh, but yeah, she is this type of character has no who has no loyalty but to herself, and like again, archetypical femme fatale. And she starts to cop feelings for Roger in like the end, towards the end, and so that comes into conflict with what the French wanted to do. But that's about it.
By the way, have you got any idea about what that anthem that the Union people were singing was? Like what? It wasn't the French anthem, obviously, because we would have all
No,
recognized it.
it's entirely created for. It's in the OST. It's called Flag. It's it's try it's trying to like be some sort of French revolutionary, vaguely sounding like the Marseillaise, but being original. What I find very funny about it, it's in English, but it's the classic issue of Japanese people trying to sing in English, and so it's kind of so it's like one of the lines is I'm reading here. It's supposed to be sacred love for the fatherland, but it always sounds like me to me. Surrender for the fatherland. Like, oh gosh, all the French jokes.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Not much to say about the butler, other than I guess he sort of came with the robot. It's a
He,
package deal.
it's a package
Yes.
deal. And he's kind of impressive as a butler. Like he won't just like help him help Roger. He does like all the mechanical work, and if need be, he will like grab an MG42 and just go brrr at people, even though he's like 60 to 70 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed kind of unlikely that like just one man can do all the maintenance on a giant robot like that. But at the end, he does bring in some people. But
Mhm.
it's not entirely clear to me like whether like these people had helped him earlier or whether like he just got them. Like whether these people knew about the big O. Um, Yeah. Now, oh, and I guess another thing about the quote unquote hero's identity or whatever. Like because like in a lot of given that this is compared to Batman, like like in Batman as well, it's sort of a big deal about like what the hero's real identity is, and like people shouldn't find it out and whatnot. But here instead, Alex Rosewater and Paradigm, they basically know from the start that the guy piloting the Big O is is Roger, and they just let him because it's convenient for them or something. Um,
Well, yeah, it's interesting with Roger's like Roger's quote unquote secret identity. It's like it seems to be a pretty much an open secret by people in the know. Uh, like Dustin knows all about it. Alex Rosewater knows all about it, but but the general populace doesn't seem to know. And Roger is specifically surprised and shocked that Beck knows about his that the fact that he pilots Big O, and Beck says, "Oh, it's a memory I had."
yeah. Yeah, which again raises more questions about a previous loop. Um,
Mm.
and we also I don't remember, I don't feel like we get much of a feeling about like what the general populace thinks of the Big O, if anything. Whether they think it's bad or good or
No, no.
and also whenever there's a fight in the city, and the Big O causes some collateral destruction, I don't remember seeing any people dying and stuff like that being a concern at all. It's just assumed that like people just run away in time, or maybe he just doesn't care. Um,
Mhm,
I don't recall ever that. So because of that, it did sometimes feel a little bit like those some of those big robot fights, like it's the end of a Power Rangers episode, and like you've got to have the mech battle because you've got to have it. Uh, yeah, something like that. It didn't really bother me um
mhm.
that much though. Um, okay. Let's see if I have anything else to say. Oh yeah, I guess I have to say who I think best girl is. Dorothy, because I don't know, I kind of enjoyed some of the exchanges between Dorothy and Roger.
Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she's a fun character. She enjoys like sort of snipping at him in small ways, while clearly also caring for him a little.
Some of the gags got a little bit repetitive. I guess one in particular, the one about the piano playing.
Oh, I like that gag, and like one of the things I specifically like about early episode, like episode 4 or something, he gets really friggin' by her piano playing. He takes her to this android excellent piano player, Instro, and Instro himself is like this. You can tell that he's like this introvert and charismatic android who's like totally devoted to his craft, really admirable towards piano playing. And he tries to have Dorothy take lessons from her. Because although her playing is excellent, like it's very forceful and by the book, and he wants her to learn to play in a more natural manner. Most subtextually because he wants her to stop doing this and stop waking him up. And like later on in like episode 17 or 18 or whatever, Dorothy's waking him up with the piano playing. But it is softer playing and it is more natural sounding and it's not as forceful. And like Dorothy has learned to play better, but Roger still doesn't like getting woken up. but that's good attention to detail.
Yeah, but I guess yeah, but it doesn't last, and she starts playing the music that she used to earlier later on as well. Also, I remember that a lot of the time that the music she does play is always like the same track, um, and like the animation of Roger coming coming up and opening the door and telling her to stop. I think that's reused sometimes a little bit. No, it's not a big deal, just something that I noticed. Um, okay. Yeah, I guess the thing which I don't like about the ending um is that it sort of makes, because I don't know, I guess I expected something more complex or whatnot. But honestly, after coming to terms with the ending of Evangelion, like I'm kind of used to this sort of thing. I don't doesn't really bother me that much. Though I saw some people being bothered by the fact that there was a reset, because some people just don't like resets because they think that um it undoes all the consequences of everything which has happened. So like, what the hell have been watching for? Like, um, if everything bad gets undone, so what's the point? Um,
Mm.
I personally don't mind. For example, I like Steins Gate, and that ending is basically, yeah, literally a reset. As long basically as long as it's shown that the protagonist earned that reset, I don't uh, really mind per se that like all the negative things which happened to him are undone. And it's not exactly, and here in particular in Bigo, it's not exactly like all the the protagonist is able to get away with all the mistakes he did because of the reset, or and it's not even exactly like a like a happily lived ever after kind of ending. Like it's still a
It's
little bit
uncertain.
disturbed. Yeah.
It's uncertain. Like you. It seems like something's changed for the better. Like this might be the last time, but you don't really know. You don't really know.
Yeah, like it's still a little bit dystopian. Like I remember watching a video about somebody talking about a TV show called Black Mirror, where like a bunch of people decide well actually they're the copies, the copies of a bunch of real people in a virtual reality world, and which is based on Star Trek,
Hmm.
and basically they decide to um, just stay in the virtual world and
Hmm.
basically pretend to go on Star Trek adventures forever. Uh,
That's such a modern fucking plot ending.
and oh, like, yeah, and it's kind of like dystopian, and I sort of got sort of the same feeling here, because they have not they, they have not really escaped whatever it is that they are in. Um, yeah. Okay. I think we have basically milked this one for all that is worth.
Mhm.
So do you think it's time to end it?
Yes.
All right then. Um, I can't remember what does Roger always say when getting into the is it action or something?
Big O action.
And it says another thing as well. What was it?
Uh,
Showtime. It's showtime.
yes.
Yes. which I guess sort of makes sense because they're inside a TV show or
All the
something.
world is a show. Yeah, that Shakespeare quote a lot because it's literally true about them.
Yeah, I think there's one review which started with that quote and it sort of annoyed me and I didn't listen to the rest of it.
You're
Like yeah,
so petty.
yeah,
You're so petty.
I think he said something like so the whole of um Big O can be summed up in one sentence. All the world's a stage. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
okay.
that's a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretentious.
All right, that's the end.